Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Kage and we're taking a look at Marvel Heroes as created by Gazillion Entertainment. After spending the last week or so playing the game, I figured it's about time I should probably go ahead and do a review. So I've gotten to the end game, basically done most of what you can do in the game. There's still more I can do. But I've got a pretty good feel about where the game is at now, and I'd like to share my impressions with you. So, Marvel Heroes is an action RPG in the vein of Diablo 2. And so you're going to see a lot of familiar tropes and itemizations, gameplay, whatever. And it's going to feel very similar to that game. It's no surprise that this is a game that is being created with David Brevik at the helm, who's the co-creator of Diablo 2. Now, that's not to say there aren't new ideas here. In fact, there's quite a few, and there's some really good ideas here. But unfortunately, it almost feels like some of these ideas stopped right there as ideas and didn't quite get all the way to fruition. Now, the game is still going to have quite a bit of fixing. In fact, there's been some interviews from David Brevik. There's been some posting on the forums. They are actively listening to people. So please keep in mind that anything that I say here very well could be looked at by Gazillion, and they may even fix. So let's move on to it, and what I'm going to do is show you a little bit of the end game, actually, so you have an idea of what things are going to be like down the line as we talk about the game in general. So, as in the style of Diablo 2, let's go ahead into an area here, and I'll show you exactly what I talk about. And in fact, it's going to be immediately obvious when I bring it out. I'm going to bring up the skill tree and show you how this works out. So here it is. You have 3 trees. You put points in every level. Now, unlike D2 where you only got 1 point a level, in this game you get 2. But because of that, your level cap is much lower. In Diablo 2, you had a level cap of 99. In this game, you have a level cap of 60. One additional change is the addition of ultimate powers. Now, every character or character class is going to have a unique ultimate skill. It is going to give you some kind of major boost of power or some major boost of damage that you can use every 20 minutes. This is one of the downsides to the game, I feel, as the ultimate powers were given this blanket treatment. 20 minutes in an action game is like a lifetime, and it pretty much guarantees that you're only going to use it against a big boss that you're fighting, and maybe not even every boss, because sometimes, depending upon the areas you're clearing out, you are going to be fighting a boss more than once every 20 minutes. I feel that this can be brought down, quite honestly. You could bring this down to maybe 5 minutes. Some of these even a minute and a half. I take a look at games like, say, let's look at Diablo 3, which had some major cooldowns added to it. And some of those are only about 2 minutes long. Something like Spider-Man's Ultimate. I mean, let's look at this one. It's a 549 to 806 damage. It immobilizes my enemy for 5 seconds, and it increases my dodge. Basically doubles my dodge chance. It gives me 100% extra dodge for 30 seconds. The damage really isn't that impressive. The 806, what I want to do is show you some of the things I have. Like I can do 557 over 5 with a corrosive web fluid, which increases my damage for any web abilities that Spider-Man here has. And that's all the while doing additional 213 damage over 2.4 attack speed. So basically I'm attacking 2.5 times every second. So this damage here, the 806, not huge. It's about maybe double about what I can do with a standard skill combo as Spider-Man. So having that on a 20-minute cooldown just doesn't quite feel right. But what sells this skill is that 30-second double dodge. But I still think you could bring the cooldown of it down and then maybe adjust. Like certain powers are going to be amazingly strong, and those can still be adjusted to have maybe a longer cooldown with some decent power. But you know, if they want to bring the cooldown down from 20 minutes, they could reduce the power, still make it feel really good to do. And I really think this is important to break up some of the monotony in moving along, killing enemies, and basically just hunting for loot. I mean, obviously that is what an action RPG is all about, running around hunting for loot. But you still want to be able to do something really cool, amazing, and fun. I mean, half the fun is in the combat, and I think that's something that Diablo 3 really proved, is that some of these games can live and die by combat. But it's not only combat alone. Your combat's only going to get you so far if you don't have something interesting for players to do, which is why Diablo 3 has been in kind of a precarious spot. It's solved a lot of its issues through patches, but Marvel Heroes is very new, and it's going to have to find its identity and find it fast, as it's sitting in a market of a lot of action RPGs. You have Torchlight 2, you have Diablo 3, you have Van Helsing, you have Path of Exile, you have the, in recent alpha, Grim Dawn. Lots of competition there, so the game is going to want to make sure that it solves a lot of these problems. So let's talk about one of the first things that I think is really good about this game, and that is there's good combat. It's kind of in the mid-ground of a lot of what I would consider the stepping stones of RPGs and where everything is. So here, for example, what I've done is I've activated a self-buff that my web abilities are going to do poison, and then I've put down a slowing field that also reduces the damage the enemies do. So here I have my corrosive web fluid. It will do damage over time, 557 over 5. I will then combine it with my web spray, which slows the enemy by 30%, reduces the damage they do by 30, and it lasts for about 6.5 seconds, right? I can combine that with this, which is my primary attack, Sticky Strike, which does 213 damage, but it does double that damage if the enemy is slow or immobilized. So right there you can see I've got 3 skills that are synergizing. So let me go ahead and I'll activate my self buff. I'll put down a slow field, and you can just see that right there I'm tearing through the enemy with a massive amount of damage. And there's quite a few really cool abilities. Like I got this AoE web ability that can do more damage if they've already been hit with a web ability recently. So you have combination attacks and synergies that are really cool beyond the standard synergies. Like they have the synergies that Diablo 2 has. For example, this ability here, 3% damage per point is given to Sticky Strike, or is given to it from Sticky Strike. So basically I've got 11 points, that's from gear. If I mouse over this I can see the actual level is 9, so I'm getting that 3% times the 9 points of damage from it. And then it goes back and forth, so this one will get damage per Spider Strike, which is this ability here. So you can see the synergies are there from the Diablo 1.10 patch. But then the synergies between skills is also there. And there's some unique abilities that Diablo didn't have, such as this Arachnid Awareness, where my Spider Sense reveals nearby enemies. Now, not all characters are created equal. I'll go ahead and show a little bit of the synergy here. I'm going to use my slowing field without the poison to show this off, and then I'll hit them with another web ability. Maybe they're just dying too quickly here. I am in a lower level instance right now, so I might be able to show it off later. But I can basically immobilize enemies that I've hit with a web power previously. So a lot I can do to manipulate the battlefield around me, and I think that's really cool. Where the combat kind of fails, and this is why I say it's not quite as good as D3, but it's better than a lot of the other competitors, is that the combat can feel good at times, and then other times it seems to suffer. Like, enemies will flinch at times when you're doing the attacks. Like right now, it's working out fairly well, but these are fairly weak enemies. But then there are some times where you'll hit an enemy, and sometimes you just won't see a confirmation of the attack that you've done, or feels like they're not affected by it. And you can be sitting there, for example, hitting these mooks in white suits with claws, adamantium claws from Wolverine or something like that, and you feel like, man, there should be some more of reaction here. Other issues I've run across is enemies affected by random physics. I've seen enemies fly away from simple basic attacks that don't look like they have much force to them. So it feels like there's a disconnect with some of the skills sometimes. This isn't always the case, but it happens enough times to just kind of take you out of it at times. Overall, though, the combat feels good. The loot is definitely good in this game. I would say it's got a very Diablo 2 vibe as well. You're going to have the standard items that you find with getting critical strike chance, for example, physical defense, but then you'll also get these kind of items where you get grants an ability at a certain rank. So I can get, while I'm leveling, a rank that I don't have yet, and it will give me that ability at that rank. If I put points into it, it's not going to go any higher or lower unless I exceed that rank, and then my personal abilities will exceed it. This will only give you it at that rank. Then there are other items, such as, let's see here. See, this one grants. Then we'll go up here, and this one adds. So I have +4 to current rank of web spray. So I can increase my stats. So it's very Diablo 2 style, where in the end game of Diablo 2, I noticed what a lot of people were hunting for, what I know I was hunting for, was a +1 to all skills, +2 to all skills. And in this game, it's more for individual skills, but every now and then you'll get something like this, which is +1 to all rank of powers. But now that I'm over this, let's talk about this, because this is where the itemization really shines. The basic gear. This stuff here, haven't seen a lot in these to make me really interested. The loot find for these is very much, you're going to have a very specific set of stats that you want, and you're only going to want those. For Spider-Man, for example, I'm looking for dodge chance, and I just haven't found a lot of it yet. So you're going to be hunting down the same items, which is kind of what Diablo 3 fell into a trap of. So I kind of hope that there'll be more interesting affixes on gear itself. But they've done a really great job in this new item here, the medallions and the medals. The medallions are the upgraded version of medals. You get these from fighting bosses in the world, and they give you unique powers based on that boss. So here, the hood will give me move speed. I've got a 5% chance of increasing my dodge by 30% for 3 seconds, and when I'm low on health, I get flames around me. So you can see that I'm using this to create a Spider-Man with dodge capabilities. And there are tons of medals with all sorts of different powers that can really help you to shape how your character plays. So you can create a very unique character from someone else using these medals. You could use a medal from the character Gorgon, who turns enemies to stone when you hit them. You know, you can have all sorts of different powers that you can make your own unique gameplay experience. So along with these medals are the artifacts. So artifacts are almost a... I don't want to call them unique items, but they almost are. There's 2 artifact slots on your character. And they, much like the medals, can have very unique gameplay changing things on them. So let's go ahead. What I'm going to do is I take out Shocker. This is one of the villains you run across, and you'll see when I beat him that he will give me some medallion and some loot. And what I'm doing right now is, this is a daily shard. This is a green terminal. This is one of the first dailies you're going to do, and in fact the very first one that you can unlock. If you look at the health bar at the top, Shocker has a little gray kind of indentation in the upper right hand corner of his life bar. That is actually a difficulty indicator. So Shocker here is actually at a level below me. And so that's why this is looking very easy. He's not hitting me very hard. I'm just going to keep spamming him with abilities. Let's talk about a little more of the combat while we're here, and I'm doing this since I can't look at the artifacts. Some of the boss fights are a little too simplistic. Shocker here suffers from a fairly simple AI that if I just run around in a circle, he pretty much will chase me unless he's kind of stuck still there. Sometimes he gets stuck still, sometimes he'll chase. And it really depends. The AI does tend to break. As you can see, he's actually fairly simple, but he is the first boss, really, the first kind of indact boss you've run across. So he's kind of designed simply. But sometimes you can run around him and hit him with abilities, like a character that can move and attack at the same time, say like Storm, can pretty much run in a circle like this and trivialize the fight. Some bosses are like that, and others, unfortunately, their difficulty comes down to getting one shot and having to avoid the one shot. And then it's really hard to avoid that one shot because there's really no indicator that that's going to happen. So an enemy boss might do a long wind-up and hit you, but sometimes it's like they don't have that wind-up and you just get hit anyway. Which, unfortunately, what I've seen with the combat is it can be very easy to die in this game because some of the defensive stats are not quite in a good place yet. and they are going to be buffing that. So hopefully we will see soon that some of the spikiness of combat damage will be brought down to make the game more interesting and enjoyable. Right now, some boss fights are simply a Zerg fest of dying and returning to the boss over and over and over again until they die. So that is one of the downsides here. So let's go to the artifacts as I was talking about this. These are where some more interesting stats are going to come from. So here I have Stark Tech Cybernetics that when I drop below a certain amount of spirit, 25%, I will deal additional damage on my next power. And I have this one which gives me some flat dodge chance and a chance to deal damage to enemies when they dodge. So you can very much create a unique character. I'll even pull up some more of these artifacts here as I've got them in my stash. Now let me show you real quick Shocker's Medallion. Unfortunately, his is simple as well. Again, first boss, so really not a lot here. 5% chance to damage and knock the enemy back when I'm hit. You can see here I have one that gives me critical strike and gives me damage to targets that are not attacking me. So if I'm in a group, that's very helpful. And that's the same one right there. Here's a motion tracker, which gives me an attack damage based on range. So the further the enemy is away, the more damage I do. So that's better for ranged characters. And it reveals enemies on the minimap. So if I'm on a hero that doesn't have that particular skill, I can get it and I can see where enemies are on the map. So itemization, honestly, aside from the basic gear, looks really good. I like the medals. I like the artifacts. I like the fact that you can create a unique hero that way. Now let's talk about the way the characters play out as far as skills. So much like D2, you really can't respec automatically. The good news is you are given one retcon device, which is basically a respec potion in the storyline, and you can get that potion once for every hero that you own. So basically you can level up with any build you want, and then once you get to end game and you know what skills you want, like once you hit level 30 is when you're going to get your ultimate and when you're going to have all your trees filled out with at least 1 point in each skill. And once you do that, you can determine what you like, use the retcon device, and finally make the build that you want. Now the good news is most of these skills seem to be designed around letting you do a decent amount of damage, or basically working well enough with only having 1 point in them. And most of them don't need multiple points. And even if you do, some of these will get a diminishing return at the end. So you're not going to feel penalized for not pumping in a skill to level 20 right away. And the game almost feels like it's rewarding you for the level up process as you're playing through the story for having points in multiple skills. So for example, here I've got a dodge ability. This is obviously something I'm going to want, but what you can see here is that it only goes up by about 0.5 dodge percent chance on the next level from 17 to 18. And so it goes to 26.68. At level 20, it's only at 27.65. So in 3 levels, it's only going to gain 1% dodge chance. In the early levels, this was getting, I think, maybe 2%, and then it went down to 1.5 pretty quickly, and then down to 1% per point, and then now it's gone down to just 0.5. So you can see that it's going to be nice to have to max out, but the diminishing return means I might want to start looking at other skills along the way. So there is good to this. Good and bad. The bad about the retcon is, again, you have 1 per character that you're going to get from the storyline as long as you reset the story to a certain point. But retcon devices, they are not terribly uncommon, but I've only found maybe 1 or 2. That's not too bad, though, considering that not a lot of time has passed. You can, of course, buy them in the store. Now, I gave Neverwinter a lot of flack for doing something like this. Here, this is the retcon device, resets all powers, and it's 300G. Now, in this game, the G is basically 1G to the cent, so 100G is $1. So that's $3 for retcon device. So it's not nearly as bad as Neverwinter's respec thing goes, and at least they drop in the world, and you're given 1 free 1 per hero. So that is much better. So I'm not going to give this game a lot of flack for that, like I did Neverwinter. The pricing in this game feels... it's a mixed bag. At first, I really praised this game for the fact that the only thing you needed to buy were characters, costumes, and inventory spots. Really, that's all there was to it. You're not buying power. It's not pay to win. Okay, well, that is true. Still, it's not really pay to win. Unfortunately, I don't like their pricing scheme, so let's talk about that. That is probably the biggest thing a lot of people here are concerned about, is the pricing, and it's probably the thing you're going to hear the most complaints about. So you can see here I've got non-combat pets. They're about $12, $50, $15, $10 for this guy. Those are, you know, kind of average, not too bad. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the price of the heroes since they're all owned right now. But this is where I have the biggest issue with the game. Heroes can cost somewhere between, I think, on an average of $4 to $6, but more expensive, more popular heroes are up to $20. Iron Man is $20. Deadpool is $20. I think even Spider-Man is $20. The starting heroes that you get a choice of 5 heroes at the beginning of the game. They're all like $6 or $3 or something like that. So they're really cheap. What the game does right, and this is the good thing, what the game does right when it comes to this is that it gives you a choice of 5 heroes to pick from, right? You get Storm, you get Thing, you get Scarlet Witch, you get Hawkeye, and you get Daredevil, right? You pick one of those 5. When you beat the starting training level, you get a random hero of those 5. So now you have 2 starting heroes. When you beat the game entirely, to beat the story, not beating the game, because obviously in a game like this you can't ever fully win because you're always hunting for loot. When you beat the end boss, which is Dr. Doom, you gain yet another hero. So you will have 3 random heroes from the starting roster of 5. So you do have choices to play as at the beginning of the game. I applaud them for that. But I still don't think I like the idea of paying $20 for a singular hero, which is not really adding a ton to the game because the game doesn't appear to have a lot of randomization in its maps. When you get through the storyline itself is kind of fun, but that only gets you to like level 25, 27. Then you get to level 30 and up through doing these daily terminals, okay? Like I showed you the first one, and it goes on like that. Every single one of these maps is static. It is not random. It does not change in any way. All the monsters are the same. All the locations of those monsters are the same. The boss is the same. The only thing that changes is what kind of affixes the boss gets and what kind of epic level or rare type of monsters you fight in between. And so I found that the end game gets kind of tedious because of that. And so a new hero lets you experience the story one more time, yay, but then the end game is still kind of the same. And I don't feel that paying $20 for a new class is really a good price point. I mean, I take a look at some competitors. Now, I'm looking more at MOBAs, so that's not really, I'm going to admit that's not entirely a fair pricing scheme. But you look at Smite, every new god is like $4. Even completely new ones. The only time that it costs more is in the in-game currency. And Marvel Heroes does not have an in-game currency you can use to purchase heroes. So the heroes feel very prohibitively expensive because the thing about free-to-play games is the way to make a free-to-play game work is to have a hook. Okay, you get someone in and you're like, hey, here, that's why they give you one of the free heroes. The fact that they only give you one, though, I mean, I would think that, I mean, even Path of Exile gives you character slots and they give you 6 different characters to choose from. Smite gives you 5 free gods and then 5 free gods on rotation for a total of 10. So only giving you one, getting up to 3, you're going to eventually get 3, but you have to work for it. I don't know. That feels like it's just kind of missing the mark. And then when you want to get a popular hero, you look at Deadpool, you look at Iron Man, you're like, I don't want to spend $20. Now, some heroes are still cheap. Some of them are in the cheaper range. But you're looking at some of the more unpopular or least popular heroes, or the B stringers or C stringers or whatever. And so that doesn't quite get the hook. I think that the heroes could be reduced to get the new players in, to entice them and say, hey, here's this awesome game. You should come in and you should play, and here's this really awesome hero you could be. And where you get people is the costumes. Now, the costumes are already fairly expensive. Some of them not. $13, $10, $11. Let's look at one of the starting characters like... let's do Thing. We're here. You can see Thing, his costume is $6.50, $7, $9, right? So you can see some of the costumes are a little cheaper and some are more expensive. Now let's look at one of the more popular characters. Let's talking about Iron Man. Well, he's very popular right now. Has a ton of costumes. Iron Man himself being $20, and you look at his costumes being $15. Is there another one that's more expensive? Oh, they're $15. There you go. I mean, you're spending $20 on the hero himself, and then $15 on a costume you might want. Like, I really like this Star Boost costume. Thankfully, I already own it, but if I was buying it fresh, that's $35 just for the character in a costume I like? That's pretty crazy. Now, again, the costumes I fully understand being expensive. That is where a lot of free-to-play games go, is with cosmetics. Let's talk about Path of Exile, yet another action RPG. In that game, you have 6 characters to play as. I don't even know how many character slots you have, because I know you can make at least one of every class, possibly more. And nothing in the game is restricted to you, at all. The only thing you pay for in that game is cosmetics. And what they found out from their fans is that some people like to pay money on prestige and for looking different. That is why Path of Exile has things like $50 cosmetic items. That's why they have $1,000 founder packs for people that want to create a unique item. Because some people have basically the income to throw away, disposable income, to do that kind of thing and to support the game. And that's where you're subsidizing your free-to-play people by having those people that want to spend that money. And so your hook is the hero. Make the hero cheap. Your moneymaker is the cosmetics for the people that want to look different. Because in this game, you will not look different from any other hero from loot. So that is one of the downsides to this game. I am wearing my Symbiote Spider-Man costume here. Alright? I can take it off and I look like regular Spider-Man. At no point does any of the items I find in the world change the way my character looks. Now, this is kind of a your mileage may vary situation, because some people kind of like that. They want to be able to look like a particular hero, and they want that costume, and so that's kind of cool. I mean, when you think of the Marvel heroes and the Marvel IP, they always have set costumes, and that's have their iconic look. So I can't fault them too much for going with this system, but it is going to alienate a lot of action RPG players because they want to be able to show off their loot. You know, so ultimately, I would really like to see them maybe add some kind of unique items that you can show off, like maybe in the weapons or something. That would be something cool. Some kind of unique item that a character could carry, so that the costume might still be the same, but you can still kind of show off that, hey, I got this really neat item. So I would like to see that. So I'm not happy with the pricing. I think the costumes right now could stay where their prices are, but they should bring down the heroes, because the costumes being expensive and the heroes being expensive is a bit much. Now that I've said that, keep in mind that hero tokens can drop in the world, and I'll go ahead and I'll show you. I've only found one so far. Now, supposedly when you unlock a hero, you will have a higher chance of finding that hero's token out in the world. And again, I've only found one. So these tokens will drop into the world, and you can right-click to unlock that hero. If you find a token for a hero that you already have, using that token upgrades your ultimate power by a level. Now, unfortunately, I don't know what kind of effect it has on your ultimate. Will it lower the cooldown? Will it increase the damage? Not entirely sure. So it's cool that you can upgrade your ultimate, but it's done on a very unreliable system of these tokens. You cannot trade these tokens or anything like that. So the heroes are prohibitively expensive, it feels like, and then the drop rates are exceptionally low. So that is where my complaint on that lies. Now, again, your mileage may vary. If you have a special item find gear, if you have special item find stats on your gear, then you might find more. And random is random. Like, I have friends that have found more epic items. Basically, find these cosmic keys, right? These are what you need for running the end game. I ran a whole bunch of these in one day and found none, and my friend found 5 in a row and multiple runs in a row without fail. It was annoying because I had more special item finds. So RNG is RNG. But that is why this can be annoying that these tokens are tied to that. Good news. David Brevik has already stated in an interview that they will be increasing the drop rate on the tokens. Praise be. Okay, so that might be resolved, but we won't know until the next major patch. And there is a major patch coming with a lot of fixes with stuff that's wrong in the game. Okay? So costumes, here's the thing about costumes, and I hope they reconsider this, is I don't mind expensive costumes, but here's the problem. My costume has stats on it. For the most part, costumes are cosmetic. But when you go to your crafter, you can spend money to put these things on it, and the crafter can be very expensive. So I'm hoping what they might do is add some way to transfer the stats from your costume to another costume. I mean, if I were playing this game for free and I happened to find a costume I really wanted to use, it would kind of suck that I could not transfer these and I'd have to spend all the money to get them. Especially because these stats are random. Every time I put it on the crafter, I may not get these stats again. So I'd have to keep doing it. So I'm hoping they may add a way to transfer these augments to another costume in order to keep the cost from being prohibitive. Overall, I do like the game. I wish the in-game wasn't so repetitive. One thing I think Diablo 3 did so well was that you can now go to any act you want and level, grind, find gear in any act, especially with the recent changes not only to monster power that occurred not that long ago, but now the very most recent patch that added monster density. As it is right now, you're going to run these green terminals, and you can run these once a day. Every time you run one of these, you're going to get this cube shard, and what happens is you trade in 10 of these cube shards for a rare card. A rare card is this guy right here. You can buy it in the store for $1. It has a chance of giving you one of 5 exclusive costumes, a pet, a decorative artifact, a retcon device, a matrix of unbinding, which allows you to take an item that you've bound to your character and remove the binding to give it to another character, rare mystery prize, which is a crafting recipe, I believe, and of course boosts for experience, money, and all that. Okay, so 10 of these shards. Since there's 9 of these instances that you can run in a day, you can get one every other day, roughly. I've heard that you can do... There's more tiers of this. Like, once I finish here at Avengers Tower, I can go to the next place, which is Xavier's Institute, and then those are slightly harder. The problem is they're the exact same maps. So even though it's harder, same maps. Once again, very disappointed that there's no randomization in these in-game maps. You know, so I get kind of bored running these maps. It's kind of frustrating to see because I like the game in general and I want to see it do well, but there's a lot that they need to fix. So once you do those, every now and then you're going to get lucky and find those cosmic keys I showed you. Use those to unlock these, which is the red terminal. And again, you can see they're the exact same maps. It takes a key, and what happens is it boosts the difficulty. It's like going the difference from nightmare difficulty to hell difficulty. A boss in the green terminal has 1 affix, a boss in the red terminal has 2. The problem is, the red terminals are supposed to give you a better source of loot drops from the bosses, but I did not feel it. I ran a couple of these, and I'm going to tell you, I just decided not to use my cosmic keys. So I wouldn't recommend doing the reds if you get to the end game. The biggest thing you're going to do is these purples. These are the challenges. You have this Madripoor challenge, which you can run with 5 teammates. You go in, and this is where it's really fun, because then you get randomized enemies I had not even seen in the storyline. So this is actually pretty fun to do, and it's got a unique threat level system, where as you run the level, the threat level goes up, which increases the damage and health of the enemies. As you kill enemies, the threat level goes down, but you have to destroy 4 portals, and when you destroy the portals, the threat level goes up. So you're constantly balancing with that. On top of that, you have Limbo Survival, which is a 15-man, I believe, in-game run, and if you die, you have to hope a teammate revives you within 4 minutes, or you're kicked out of the mode, and you're done. And you're running around trying to keep the threat level down by finding flares, and if you fail to do so, you fail the match. If the threat level gets too high, you automatically fail. After 7 waves of enemies occur, you fight a random boss who has a chance of some really great loot, and so Limbo is where a lot of people are playing the game right now. As you can see, by unlocking, if you do Madripoor, you unlock Limbo. You do Limbo, you unlock Madripoor Challenge 2 and 3, and these require cosmic keys. So I would not use my keys on the reds. I would probably save them here for these purple items at the end game. So I am impressed with the variety. I mean, we're looking at like 21 heroes here. Each one is considered its own class. Some of them are tanky, some of them are agile, some are ranged, some are melee. The downside right now in combat is that melee feels a little squishy, and again, that's partly because of the defensive stat problems they're having right now. Okay, so I've gone over a lot, so I guess I should go ahead and just let me kind of distill this down and give you kind of a final impression. The game feels fun, but it feels a little stifling for someone that doesn't want to pay money. I have all the heroes, and I'm kind of enjoying myself because I can swap at will. I'm hoping they look at that. Drop rates improving will help with that. Reducing prices might help even further. It is fairly fun, but there are just so many things that need to change. I was really afraid that this game was going to be very anti-consumer in its practices. I mean, even though the stuff that you pay for is not for power, one of the biggest problems I'm running across is this. Crafting mats. They don't stack. I tried to go through this game without buying stash slots. I mean, I got the extra money from buying the packs, from buying the Ultimate Pack, so I could easily have bought these with the money they gave me, because they gave me a ton of free money. But I wanted to see what it would be like if I was a free-to-play player. And because these things don't stack, I spent so much of my in-game credits trying to combine crafting materials. And eventually I was still running out of space, and I just had to buy the stashes. And that is being addressed, but unfortunately I don't think this is going to be fixed in the near future. There are technical reasons why it is this way, but at least they said they want to fix it. So where I was really angry with Gazillion at first because I thought they did this on purpose, I'm glad they didn't. So they still have a bit of my support here, okay? I think they can turn this game into something decent. Unfortunately, for those of you who are action RPG enthusiasts, if you don't care about the Marvel IP, then you may find yourself passing this one by, as there's not much that Marvel Heroes offers up that its competition doesn't already have. This really is a game for people that enjoy the Marvel license. Now, I'm okay with Marvel. I enjoy reading a bit about their lore, but I never really got into them as like reading a lot of them. But I like the characters, and I kind of like the setting, and I got into the 90s X-Men cartoon. I liked Spider-Man. So I watch them more from their animated series than the comics. So I have fun with it. There are good things like the Synergies. But again, some characters aren't quite there yet, and they are working on that. So please approach this one with caution. And especially if you're thinking about looking for a character, do a little research on the character you're thinking of buying first. Because right now, characters can be expensive, and you may not be happy with your purchase. I will be trying to do some character guides and maybe make it like a buyer's guide to try and help with that. But definitely, buyer beware, look into that first, and hopefully the drop rates will change so you don't have to worry about that as much. So yes, action RPG enthusiasts, hardcore players, honestly, you're probably going to give this one a miss, but it is free to play at marvelheroes.com, so you can download it, give it a shot, and if you don't like it, you really haven't lost anything but a little bit of time. And who knows, you may like it. If you're into Marvel, hey, you know, it's actually a pretty good game. I'm going to put it in kind of the line of being average. I think there are better out there, obviously. I still find D3's combat to be fun, even though I haven't played it recently. Torchlight 2 is quite fun. Path of Exile, if you're really into, you know, the numbers game and creating builds, that's a really good one there. So there are definitely options out there, and that's why I say this game has to be very careful about what it does within these first few months of its life, because it will be drowned out by all the other competitors out there if it's not careful. So that's it, Marvel Heroes, and I will answer any questions I can about the game, since I know I rattled on about a lot of stuff. This is it's a large undertaking, and let me real quick, since I did mention it, leveling. I mentioned the level cap is 60. It's not easily obtained. It's not like Diablo 3. So if you're thinking like, oh man, I wish it was Diablo 2 where it had 99 levels, don't worry. It takes you forever to get to 60. I'm level 34 and I've been playing for weeks. Once you get to level 30, the experience slows to a crawl. You have to run limbo a lot. So for some people that may be a good thing. For me, it's kind of a meh because the end game still feels kind of samey. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.